We are talking Sweetheart from 2019, and this is directed by J.D. Dillard. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat that this movie is not helped by a stupid and generic sounding title and an equally stupid, generic and boring poster, because it does this movie no favours whatsoever. But let me tell you what this movie is actually about. It focuses on a young woman who is a castaway. She's washed up on a beach somewhere on a small island, and she is alone and she's shipwrecked. Obviously no provisions, but things are about to get a whole lot worse when there seems to be a creature, an aquatic, almost like Sharkman, comes out the sea of a night to hunt, and this thing is dangerous. As the movie goes on, we get a couple of other kind of survivors turn up, and but this thing is just still out there hunting. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss. So outside of incredibly poor marketing, what can we say that works in this movie's favour? I actually have to say this is a pretty good movie. It's like Castaway meets Predator is the best way I would describe it. Obviously a kind of horror movie set on a tropical island is a very different setting, you know, because this island looks beautiful. You know, white sands, lush vegetation, and yet we've got a kind of a killer monster. And the movie never over-explains it. You know, it gives you just enough information, I think, to get an idea about what's going on without explaining, you know, what this creature is, where it's come from, etc. And also, even what happened to the boat. We just kind of learn that there's some type of storm and people ended up in the water, and that's kind of all we are told. And the movie starts straight away with our main character getting washed up. So I think this movie, you know, is giving the audience some credit in regards to, you know, figuring things out on their own. And this is a Blumhouse movie, which is, you know, is normally kind of somewhat cookie cutter, to be honest. And I quite like the fact that this movie, it treats its audience with some intelligence, even though, you know, it's a very simple story. And I've got to say, as I mentioned, the juxtaposition of this horror with this kind of tropical setting obviously makes it somewhat kind of unique in regard to its kind of visual sort of stylings and stuff. Of course, there's been, you know, tropical horrors as well, but mostly it's kind of an old dark house in the woods and things like that. So I kind of quite enjoyed this lush setting that this movie kind of takes place in. I thought the performances are all strong. There's not really loads of dialogue in this movie, because there's for the most part of this film, there's only one person on screen at any one time, so there's not a huge amount of dialogue. But the acting, and there's obviously a lot of physical acting here, I think is all solid. I think this movie does do a good job of kind of ratcheting up the tension, and it generally has some kind of artistic kind of qualities to it. The first time you get a glimpse of this creature, I think is incredible. It's a great piece of photography. Our kind of protagonist shoots like a flare gun in the air, and as it comes down in the water, you see like the torso of this thing rising out the water. It's a great shot. So there's some genuine kind of like artistic merit that can be said about this movie. Don't know how it's kind of quite rising out the water, because it seems to be that a bit far out, but whatever. You know, we won't kind of pick up too many holes in that. But let's talk about the creature itself. So this is kind of like, as I say, it doesn't give you any answers about what's kind of going on. You just know it's there. It looks cool, as I say. It almost looks like a hammerhead humanoid sort of style creature. You know, so it's pretty impressive, and you know, it looks fearsome. It's making these. There's some great kind of sound effects that kind of go with it to kind of. When it's in the dark, you can't quite see, you know, where it is and things, but you can hear it. And what makes it equally dangerous is it obviously is dangerous on land and in the sea. In actual fact, it sometimes jumps back in the sea to kind of you know, get a bit of speed and kind of jump out of the water and stuff. So it's pretty good. It's not a particularly gory film necessarily, but I think it does a good job of still having some pretty kind of decent sort of scares there, I have to say. What doesn't work in this movie, there are a couple of like basic logic things that I think are just sort of overlooked, or I mean, I guess you could argue that our characters who get, you know, cast away on an island might not always be prepared for that, and obviously not think of certain things. But like, I thought it would have been relatively obvious to kind of like write like an SOS sign in like stones or shells or something on the beach. So I mean, she even sees a plane. So like, you would have thought that she would have tried to make some, you know, not even nothing to do with the monster, just trying to kind of get someone's attention and stuff. It would make basic sense to try and sort of do that. It's a passive thing. Once it's on there, you can just kind of leave it, and hopefully kind of someone will see it. But again, there's a couple of things that I think are a little illogical. When we have our second two survivors turn up, they of course don't believe her that there's a kind of a monster. But the events that happen, I feel are a little bit more treated to be a little bit maybe not how people would act, and then a little bit over dramatic to get the story to a certain place. I mean, why not say, look, you know, you'll see. Hide for this one night, and then you'll see, and then we'll kind of like, you know, we'll try and get off the island in the morning because these two have got a raft. So it's kind of like, but that doesn't happen. We instead get something else happening, which is there to inflate the drama. And the only thing about the creature, I would say, it looks like it's hoofed, which doesn't really make sense in the fact that it's obviously an aquatic creature that can live on land, but it kind of looks like it when it walks, because we see close-ups of its kind of feet, and it looks like it's almost hoofed, which, why would it be hoofed if it was a sea creature? I don't know, but there you go. But relatively minor quibbles, I would say. For the most part, I actually think this is a pretty strong movie. So, you know, it's a lower budget film, obviously. It's not, you know, there's no sort of huge set pieces. But I gotta say, I think it's an enjoyable creature feature with some decent effects for the most part, good acting, and a nice simple premise, which is you know, easy to understand, and I think treats the audience with some intelligence. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Have you seen Sweetheart? What a stupid name! I can't believe it. Anyway, 7 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.